We're going to do a hands-on session tonight. It's a very niche topic, although I would actually love to write a book on this topic because people do ask us all the time about how do I gamify X? And I titled this session about how to gamify a conference. But I need to rephrase that because it's not necessarily a conference. I mean, that's what we do, right? At GamiCon, we plan these both live and online conferences. But when I talk to people, they're talking about everything from a sales team meeting, like the sales teams coming into corporate office in October, and they need to do something to liven up that event, make sure that the sales team is getting the information that they need, making sure it sticks. So what can we do to gamify that? Or working with a not-for-profit who has monthly meetings or quarterly networking, and how could we add some gamification to that to get people involved before, during, and after. So when I use the word conference, that's actually the wrong word to use. I want us to be thinking about any type of event that, and it could just be a weekly staff meeting that we're thinking, I want to do something different here because what I have to communicate is important that they understand it so they can do something with it. I don't want them to think it's just another meeting among many meetings that we attend every week. So what can we do differently? So I'm going to have us do a lot of hands-on tonight, a lot of thought about what we might do differently. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll share some ideas and then ask you to think about how you might want to use the information in what you're doing, or ideas of how you might use it. So again, I have the word conference here, and it could be a huge conference. It could have 40,000 people there, but it also could have 40, or it could have 14, right? So there, whatever we're thinking about bringing some kind of gamification to, everything I'm teaching you here tonight, we can use that. So our main idea here is that we're going to take whatever is considered traditional in a meeting, in an event, in a conference, and we want to unwrap that and put it back together with some game mechanics so that we can boost our participation, the engagement from our participants, make sure that they're learning whatever it is that needs to be happening during that time, whether it's theory and then skill practice, application, doing something different, something new, and then making sure that there's that sense of community, because that always helps to boost that long-term engagement. And so everyone here has, for the most part, our team members have in some way been involved in a GamiCon event. And so they're here to answer any questions that you have about what we've done at GamiCons. I'm going to pull on our experience from our GamiCon conferences and pull back the curtain and share the good, the bad, the ugly, because we've done a lot of learning along the way. And when we think about where do you start when you're going to gamify, it's the same as where do you start when you're not going to gamify. What are you trying to accomplish? So whether it's a weekly staff meeting that you're thinking people just come, they get here as late as they can, they leave as soon as they can. I'm trying to build vision. I want to lead this team. I want employees to feel like they're a part of it. What can I do differently? We have to start with defining those goals. What are our objectives that we want to achieve? And for every event, it's different. And there's not necessarily a right or a wrong, but I'm going to put into the chat one of the books that really seriously impacted me when we first started doing GamiCons was a book by Chip and Dan Heath, and it's called The Power of Moments. And for years now, we've referenced that book as we think about planning our events, because they give so much great information on not just like how the event should flow, but exactly what is it you're trying to achieve. And based on what you're trying to achieve, your meeting or event should look different than everything else. In The Power of Moments, Chip and Dan Heath are very clear that memories are hung on peaks and valleys. And so those high moments and those low moments, that's where memories get hung. And so if we're trying to think about, we want this to be really impactful and have that audience engaged, then we got to create these memories, these meaningful events that will help our learners or our participants to really have these memories. We want to, of course, increase that engagement, foster networking, enhance learning outcomes. Those are always our goals for Gamicon. For any kind of event you're planning, that may not be your goal. It could be that we have to change total direction in the way the market share that we're having has been slipping. And so the company's going to introduce some new products. We're moving from a luxury brand to more of a commodity brand. And so we've got to communicate that and get everybody on board. Whatever it is that we're trying to communicate, these are the things that we want to map out very clearly ahead of time what that is. And I'm going to put it here on the slide, and then I believe Renee is going to drop it into the chat. And we're going to pop over there. So let me get this up on the screen and I'll share it. And you, of course, can look at it on your own screen if you'd prefer. But when we first started with doing our Gamicons, it started because we had been involved in gamification conferences that other people were hosting. And we went to them and we loved them. And we met people in this global community that were doing amazing things. And these were researchers. They were people who were really testing the boundaries of what gamification can do. But it was also L&D people who were taking gamification and bringing it into their companies. I remember, what's that? I can't remember the chain of restaurant right now. Applebee's. Applebee's did a really fun onboarding gamification. And so as we started seeing what different companies were doing, we were just thrilled to be part of that. So we did it here in the United States with Gabe Zickerman. We did it in Spain with the Gamification World Congress. And then that stopped. And there was nothing going on that we could be a part of. And at 2017, when I saw this huge gaping hole, I went to our friends at Training Magazine and I said, how do you feel about filling this gap? We'd love to partner with you and to host a conference specifically for gamification. And so we started that. Our inaugural year was 2018. Honestly, we didn't have a clue of what we were doing. We're in Chicago. It's the middle of the marathon. But we had my friends. We had my friends who are these gamification, these goats, right? The greatest of all time. They've been there in gamification from the very beginning, all international. They all agreed to come and speak. And it really was just turned out to be an amazing event because we were all there trying to figure it out together. From there, we went to New Orleans, and then the world came to a crashing halt. And we had to think about what can we do because we now can't get together anymore. And so we went online, and all these people that you see online, these are our friends that came to our first conference in Chicago who came live, and they agreed to come back and do virtual play shops with us. And that's how we actually got to meet Renee. Renee came to some of those play shops and just immediately bought into it. From that, we started going deeper into what are we really wanting to achieve. We knew that Sententia is based on adult learning programs. So we always focus on adult learning. Not that we're against any other kind of learning, but that's what our niche is, adult learning. And so when we think about what we wanted that conference to specifically be about, it could have been about marketing. It could have been about classroom, fifth grade classrooms, all of which are great. And we've had those speakers on our platform. But when we started in 21, we started to really, really get focused on, well, it should represent who Sententia normally works with, and that's adult learners. And so from there, we just moved to more of a camp background, which we're going to go back to this year because it was a lot more play, a lot more longer hands-on sessions. And so at our live event that will happen in New Orleans in 25, it's going to be a camp. We're going to take it back to a camp Gamicon. But just throughout the years, we've stayed focused on adult learners. This is corporate training and university type experiences. What can we do to bring gamification to those audiences? And who can we bring to the table that's going to share these big ideas that we don't know? Who can we bring to the table that's going to show us what they've done in real life in their organizations that just makes our minds go, that's amazing. We want to try that too, because that's always what we want people to be walking away with, is that thought that, I could do that. I could implement that. So we just wrapped up our 24 live. We now do 2 Gamicons a year. We were doing 3 and even 4 at one time, but we brought it back down to 2. We do a live event that's co-located with Training Magazine's TechLearn in the fall. So this is a very specific niche audience that comes to TechLearn. These are mostly, like, I'll say 90% are corporate designers and developers, instructional designers, training managers, chief learning officers, asynchronous e-learning developers, but they're pretty much focused in corporate training. And so that's what we want. We want to make sure that they're getting things in their hands that they feel like they can go back and have some big ideas, but then also, hey, I can do this today. I can go back to my hotel room and I can map this out and I could take this back to work and we can start doing this as soon as I get back. We also do a virtual 48-hour event that will happen in February. And that's more where we bring in like blue sky thinking, and we do a variety of hands-on workshops, as well as what I would call the more traditional TED Talk, because I want to hear those ideas where people are researching and discovering that none of us have thought of yet. So let's go back to you. If you were to think about a program that you could change with some gamification, what kind of conference or meeting or event would you love to transform? And it's okay if all you know right now is, I'd really like to see this different. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I got into gamification in the first place, was because I went to a training where I really wanted to know this information, because I was working with clients on writing their business plans, and the bankers were going to share their formulas with us. And all they did was everything but that. And I walked away from that so disappointed. And I thought how much learners deserve better than to really go spend an entire day and not walk away with anything they can actually use. So I want you to think about, what is one thing that if you could change it, you don't have to know how you would change it yet, but you would like to. I want you to think about a meeting, an event, a conference, and I want you to think, how might you, as you think about, we could bring gamification into it, let's not forget, well, what are our overall objectives? Why would we be having this meeting or event to begin with? And so I want to send us to breakouts to get some conversation going. And I think that just by the nature of how life works at any given point in time, the reality is some of us are going to be like, I really don't know. I really hadn't thought about it before. But there'll be others of us that have something really clear, like, I have a sales team meeting coming up and I want to see what I can do to make that more engaging and sticky, that'll really stick for our sales team. And that's what you'd want to focus on. So what I'd like you to do is share some ideas about what you might like to gamify. And then as a breakout group, let's just pick one of those. So if you don't have an idea right now, that's okay. Buy into someone else's idea and you can help them to build on that. So I'm going to ask Jonathan to put us into breakouts for 8 minutes, or Renee. And I want you to think about a conference you would love to transform. Define what that conference is, and then come back with a couple objectives. When you come back, I'm going to ask you to put those objectives into the chat bar. We'll just take a few minutes to debrief, because I want us to pull it all together. And then I'll ask you to share some ideas at the very end. So let me make sure that and you can grab a screenshot of this if you want to take it with you. Please feel free to grab a screenshot. I saw some really fun things in both groups, heard good conversation, and then saw some things in another. So really nice. What I'd like you to do is, any ideas you have right now as you think about what would be an objective that we have, and what kind of event we're thinking that we would gamify. And I think we were sharing ideas and maybe didn't settle on anything, and that's okay. So if you want to just keep flowing with that, but put anything that you have in the chat. And I want to give us just some tips as we think about gamification. And these would be tips even if we weren't going to be gamifying, but if we are going to bring some kind of game-like element to it, we have to make sure that our gamification goals are aligned with the overall conference objectives. Let me give you an example. Oftentimes when people say they gamify a conference, all they're really talking about is they give points for the app interaction that's going on that tells you like where the conference rooms are and who's speaking. And they reward bad behavior. So they get these unintended outcomes and they're rewarding things they don't really want to reward. It's not aligned with the conference goals at all. So if when somebody says they're gamifying their conference and they're gamifying interactions, oftentimes what happens is people know they'll get points for just saying nice, like it, thumbs up, take a picture, right? And they're not even really interacting at all, but those are ranking up points for them because what people are trying to win is something like an iPad or what were those bags that they were giving away across from us in the training conference last year, Jonathan? They made them in Salt Lake City. Cotopaxi. Cotopaxi bag. You get a Cotopaxi backpack full of all this stuff, which is a nice prize. It's really nice. But if I know all I have to do is say nice, great, and earn points by doing that, then I am in no way aligned at all with what the conference is trying to achieve. So make sure we're rewarding the right behaviors. Consider your demographics and tailor your experience accordingly. On Tuesday, I'll talk more about the toolbox tutorial, but I'll share with you the first player journey that we drafted for our Chicago event. And I was guilty of designing for personas who weren't actually there because I was designing for me and for Jonathan and for Bernardo, who we were gamifying it. But we weren't considering we did consider, but we forgot in certain places, right? So you have to make sure that you're tailoring the experience to who the audience is. It needs to be engaging and fun for them. And the challenge is that we think that people should be and are like us. And as soon as we think that, we're going to be disappointed, and so will they. And then we've got to have some kind of measurable outcome so that we can evaluate the success. How will we have a proof of concept? How will we know that, yes, I enjoyed this. I really liked the game component of it. I really got to meet some people I wouldn't have met. It was a great way to kick off the event by having this gamified kickoff where I got to meet people I know I wouldn't have met. And then I saw them all throughout the conference. So I felt like I made a friend on that very first night, right? How are we going to measure that success? So make sure we have some measurable outcomes attached to it, because again, we're trying to create these memories where learning or whatever it is that we're working on in that event can stick, because they're going to stick to the highs and lows. So how can you make sure we're going to measure those? So we start with objectives. That's a great place to start. The next is always my favorite. This is my favorite. And my team often has to remind me that the objective is more important than the theme. But I love the theme because the theme's the narrative. It's the story. It's what ties it all together. And so as you start thinking about what element of fun, you do want to have some kind of theme that people can, because again, the memories will be attached to that. I listened to books on tape in the morning, and the book I was listening to earlier this week was talking about emotions are so important in learning because our memories are attached to emotions. And when we want people to remember certain aspects of something they're learning, it's vital that we attach that to emotions. Themes and narratives can help us to do that. So from the very beginning, we've had different types of themes that we've carried through at our GamiCon events. So Camp GamiCon was all about, sitting around the campfire and having s'mores. In fact, Renee designed a game for us that we used at an expo hall. And if you played and you participated in the game, which was really fun. You got a bag of s'mores, so marshmallows and a chocolate bar, and so make your own s'mores, which people did go back to their hotel rooms, use their microwave and made s'mores, whatever town we were in, I can't remember. But that was a ton of fun. It was all about that engagement of remember when you would sing songs and tell scary stories and build these lifelong friendships. And that's what we were creating with that Camp Gamicon and what we want to do again in New Orleans. Of course, it's hard to do New Orleans without doing a Mardi Gras theme. Rebecca, who's on the call here, and Glenda were instrumental in our Mardi Gras theme last year that we did in New Orleans. And it was just beautiful and engaging. First time we were able to go live, we were in Orlando. So of course we had to use the mouse. And we did the whole Gamicon was based on the teachings of the mouse. And there was a book I based it on called like 9 Days with the Mouse. And it was all about how Disney does things differently and how can we bring that into our learning events. We've done social deduction with spies and detectives. We had in Austin, the F1 track is the only permanent F1 track in the world, and right now is F1 weekend, so they're out there racing. There's only 20 people on the planet who are capable of driving an F1 car. That's how specific that sport is, and it's a billion, I don't know how big, $1 billion sport, but it was so much fun to have that F1 theme as we carried that out. But of course, we also do it in our live events. From the very beginning, when we went online that first time, we still wanted to make it all about doing, because knowledge is good, but doing is better. Knowing is good, but doing is better. So how could we do those workshops? Leaders and Legends came to me because my daughter-in-law recommended the King Killer Chronicles. If you've read that series of books, it's amazing. There's a young character in there who the whole King Killer Chronicles is about, and his name is Quoth. And so I wanted a young Quoth as our legend, our leader, somebody who wanted to become a legend. And so we all took on that persona of wanting to move from leader into legend. Last year, we had our young Nevin Evanstone, and Renee is going to drop that. Can you put that in the chat for me, Renee, or do you want me to do it? Do you have it?
I do. Hang on here.
Okay. So we created this whole backstory on Nevin Evanstone that was created by our Game Garage people. So we opened up a challenge. We wanted the young steampunk warrior. We wanted him named. We wanted a backstory that we could build the whole event around. And it was just phenomenal. We ended up having like 2 or 3 winners because we pulled from, I think, 3 different people for the name and the backstory and the theme that we were going to use. We knew we had this young steampunk hero, but we didn't know anything about who he was. And that's where we are this year right now with this young woman. The same gentleman, Frank Parker, who created our steampunk hero last year, created our heroine. She doesn't have a name. We just know that we're in a time that's unlike any other, just as every point in history has been. But we also know that because of that, we can't approach anything we're doing like we've always done it in the past, because we've never been here before. And so it's up to us to help invent this future. And this young steampunk heroine is going to take us on that journey. So I'll be putting a challenge out in the Game Garage to name her, give us a backstory. What's her story? Who is she? Where is she taking us as we think about inventing the future? And you get, actually, if we pick your name story, you actually get to attend Gamicon for free, and you can bring a friend with you. So that's a nice little thank you very much for helping us to invent the future together. So as you think about a theme, there are so many different ways that you can go. You can go detective, you can go a game that you love, like more of a Dungeons and Dragons, or more like a Clue game. You can take it into something that's steampunk, something futuristic, something more like a Jurassic Park. I mean, there is no wrong answer. Well, let me see. there's a lot of right answers. There probably are some wrong answers depending on who your audience is. So your audience may not have any affinity at all. So like for me, I'll go and I'll participate if you're doing a zombie apocalypse, but I'm not going to really love it, but I'll still play. But I don't watch any zombie anything. I just don't like the idea. But if you had an audience that did, that would definitely be the way to go. So we're going to go back to our breakouts. We're thinking about events of any kind. And if you could craft any kind of theme for that event, what would you want that theme to be to help that become this immersive experience? When we talk about games, the concept is called a magic circle. We step inside this magic circle and we accept that this is the reality and these are the rules. And the magic circle should be so significant that when we step out of it, I like to equate it to when you've gone to a movie in the middle of the afternoon and it's all dark in the movie theater and you're loving it and you're laughing or you're scared and you're on the edge of your seat. Then you walk back outside and that daylight just kind of hits you in the face. That's what that experience with that magic circle should feel like. That while I'm there, I'm totally immersed. And when I step out of it, I am well aware that I am no longer in there. So Jonathan, can we go to breakouts for 8 minutes? I want us to think about theme, make sure it resonates with the audience. And I know some of you were in the chat. I could see that you really like zombies. I love zombies. And for me, they don't make sense. Zombies can't die, but then you can kill them. And so I never know, can you kill them? Are they the Walking Dead? Well, if they're the Walking Dead, then they can't. So anyhow, but for some of you, that's a great theme. So if it works for your audience, then you can use it. It should guide the design. So everything we want to, when we're thinking about design and thinking about that magic circle, we want it to be as cohesive as possible. Now, if we had a limitless budget, you could make that happen a whole lot easier. But then also when you put the walls up of a limited budget, that's actually where creativity could happen. So even with like our Mardi Gras last year in Gamicon, we couldn't transform those conference rooms because we didn't have that kind of budget, but we could include Mardi Gras type decorations and masks and beads and noisemakers and everything that we could do to take a hotel conference room at the Hilton and make it feel more like a Mardi Gras event, incorporating different aspects of the parade route that the crews, because everyone was on a crew, a KREWE. And so having that parade route as part of, we really wanted to have them go out on the parade route. But then again, you only have 2 days to do an event. You can't have everybody going all over. Plus, we know from our personas that they're more low physical activity. So although a percentage would have liked walking all over New Orleans, the majority would not have. So you got to think about who's that audience we're designing for, and then incorporate it into your rewards and achievements. So for example, just in Austin, everything was F1 that we could make F1, from night lights that shone an F1 car up on the ceiling to Legos, to those lesser, and we'll talk about those in just a minute, extrinsic like slap bracelets and keychains, and make your own F1 car, so that everything was tied to that. But of course, the real achievements that they can earn are things that the speakers and sponsors donate, like books and frameworks and cards and coaching time, so they can work towards those. But we always keep some, we call it greasing the skids, some extrinsic that people can earn easily along the way too. So make sure you bring that theme into everything you're doing. All right. Gamification mechanics, that's what we're all here for. But we know that we have to do a lot of work before we can start slapping some mechanics on there. Mechanics can include points, level ups, in-game currency, challenges, and rewards. I want us to move past just points and a leaderboard, because it's going to be so motivating for so few people. Points that are adding up because I'm taking actions that I can use for something that has a value to me is valuable. Points that don't take us in the direction that the conference is going are going to get unintended consequences. So we want to motivate the attendees to participate in the activities of the event. And this down here There could be people that disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. I know from our experience that having a mix of intrinsic and extrinsic is the best way to motivate people to engage fully. For example, in Chicago, the very first year we put these, if you think of going to a music festival and you get like a little paper band, and every time they leveled up, they got a different colored paper band. And very quickly, some people were leveling up and they had like 9 of these on their arm. And everyone else is like, well, how did you do that? I only have 2 right now. And so then they started thinking about, what do I have to do differently? And those were so easy to get. And of course, the more valuable was more investment on the part of the learner. So think about how you can use intrinsic and extrinsic. This is a beautiful design that Glenda Dehoff, who's on the call with us, did for us last year in New Orleans for our game that ran throughout. It was completely gamified. These cards had information on them, but they were also part of a bigger puzzle. As you can see, they all have some different colors at the bottom here. Plus, they were part of an augmented reality adventure. So when you had the app and you put your camera on, there was image things that came up that took you further on that adventure. So during the game, participants could follow the story, uncover clues, solve challenges, collect cards, put together their float puzzle, get random rewards, get magical items, make strategic decisions. So all of these were part of the gameplay that Glenda designed. And this was actually our master craftsmen have to design and deploy a project to a targeted audience. And this was Glenda's master craftsman project, her level 3 project. And it was beautiful and stunning. And Rebecca designed the puzzles. So each person was put on a crew, and they had a float puzzle that they were building along the way too. So that brought that networking and camaraderie in. So lots of different ways you can do it. The beauty of this is that it involves both analog and technology, because it was TechLearn, where we co-locate with TechLearn. So we always like to bring technology in because that's what the conference is about. But also cards are fast, and cards are, well, it wasn't fast for Glenda to design, but cards to print. And when you go to the level of beauty that Glenda created, it was a lot more in depth and the intricacy of her design. But typically cards can be fast, quick and dirty. Get them printed cheaply, iterate, change what you need to change. So different types of game mechanics you could implement in a conference setting. And what would you like to include? I'm going to pull up one more slide. And these are just some that are not just what we consider like a badge and a leaderboard, but points and levels. So as people engage with the conference, they can accumulate points that they can access different levels, different resources, different recognition, extrinsic rewards like wristbands that participants can earn. So it has this friendly competition, but you could, like, a wristband is something that we call inconsequential. At the end of the event, it has absolutely zero value other than bragging rights, maybe, but it's not something that has street value. So we want that kind of friendly competition. Intrinsic is what are they learning? How are they sharing that information? How are they taking that information and thinking about how they're going to apply it? So they can earn currency as they're learning the content and sharing it, and that can be available at only certain levels for them to maybe get time with one of the speakers, or earn a book or a deck of cards or a framework. Challenges and quests, people love that challenge, love that quest. You can have some of them that are timed, that they've got just a few minutes to do something. Some of them can go over the entire event if you want to. There's no absolute way to do that. You can do it based on what you're trying to achieve. And then, of course, this narrative and storytelling, always having something that's weaving it together. To me, your narrative should be, if you've ever sewn or you knit, like my mom makes these big wool sweaters, but then she's got to take all those individual pieces. She's got to bring those all together. She knits those in. So that should be that thread that pulls everything together in your event. So as we're thinking about that theme, that story. That's what we use that for. So I want to go back here. But as you think about mechanics, what would you like to consider using in your event as you gamify it? And I'll pull this next screen up again so you can have all of those. But extrinsic, intrinsic challenges, narrative story, points, levels, in-game currency. Think about what you're thinking as far as the theme. Think about what your objective is. Jonathan's going to give us 8 minutes to think now how I'll bring in game mechanics. If you are newer to us, game mechanics are those parts of games that make them fun. So things like level ups, unlocks, boosters, life jackets, free lunch. Jonathan's identified 200, and Jonathan Peters is our chief motivation officer. And he's identified 200, and I'm going to guess 36 that you can use in adult. Am I exaggerating? How many?
A little bit. I think it's 232.
Okay, I exaggerated. 232 that you can use in your adult learning programs or events. So these are things that make games engaging and fun, create that dynamic of play that you can extract from a game and put that into your event to help make that an engaging experience. 232 of those. So it's a whole lot more than a leaderboard that we can pull into. So let's think about that with our participants. Focus on who they are, what they might enjoy, and let's do 8 minutes in breakouts. And then I'm going to ask you to share some ideas as you come back from this breakout. Okay, everyone's back, and I see that Jeff Master Monaco is here. I am so excited. Do you have electricity, Jeff, I guess?
What?
Well, I'm in the car, but we do have electricity.
Okay, all right. Jeff is in North Carolina.
South Carolina, but yeah.
South Carolina. As soon as I said it, I'm thinking that's not true. He's in South Carolina and was right in the middle of the first storm that came through. So Augusta University, where Jeff works, was kind of hit hard.
Yeah, it's still pretty banged up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're back to classes, but it's
hazard yet forward. Yeah. All right. Let's go. I'm going to ask Artrell, Michaela, Rebecca, those that were in that first room, John Galto, what would you have to share with us as far as a big idea for an event, how you might theme it? Do you have something you would share with us?
Yeah, so we were thinking something along the lines of like if we were doing like an ATD conference or even for GamiCon, like taking inspiration off of your picture. It could be the theme is going back in time to fix something, or Michaela had put like having to put pages in a book. Those last pages, so something went wrong and you have to go back in time in order to put the knowledge back together in the book to figure out what went wrong in order to to save us all from AI.
Wow.
Cool.
Trails on a plane.
Our trails on a plane.
Charlie, are you on a plane for real? Oh my God. Where are you going? None of your business, Monica.
Charleston.
Where?
Charleston.
Oh, all right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that, Rebecca. How about the second group? That was Adrian and Barbara, Glenda, Kit, Sadie.
I can talk, I guess.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about, we all love the idea of scavenger hunts, and we all love the idea of, choose your own adventure. So we had the idea of having quests of different levels that were worth greater or fewer points. And it was a combination of puzzles and interviewing people and things like that. And then I have this deck of cards that's based on appreciative inquiry called Changes, and using that as a basis for the interview guide. And then we talked about the problem of overwhelming the people that they're going to talk to. So maybe sending different teams off to different departments and then having them report. Part of their point system would be to report back to the larger group what they discovered. Did I miss anything?
No, so I think because I went in there, you said, but just to clarify, you're talking about like an onboarding event. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good.
So
Very
new
good.
employee onboarding.
And when you pulled out that deck of cards, see, I had totally forgotten that we used to use those decks. They're called sneaky cards. Has anyone ever, you can
Sneaky
actually
Pete.
register and those cards can stay in circulation
Sneaky.
and go all across the globe. But
I think they're
it's like
Sneaky
you
Pete.
do nice things for people and you don't know what card you're going to get. It was a really, we used that in Chicago. And when you pulled out that deck of cards, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good, Kit. That's the kind of fun that something that's already been invented that you can bring into your event. You don't have to reinvent every piece of what you're doing. There's so much great stuff out there. What can you take that already exists that you can bring into what you're doing? And I love Kit. I didn't see it before, but you said you use the name tags. So you use those ones that are a little bit off.
Yeah, well, for the conference, they have, most of the conferences I go to have name tags, but then there's this whole ribbon war thing going on where the more ribbons you have, the more, influence you have at the conference kind of thing. So some of them are like first time attendee, and then there's like senior board member, and then there's like speaker, and then there's funny ones like Irish, I'm Irish, or just random things, and so people just kind of put them on, and it's just become a thing where you just start, you go to the ribbon box at the beginning of the conference and start adding them.
Yeah, I love it because it is that, again, outside of that conference, if you were to walk outside in public with a 6 foot long or however long, a 3 feet ribbon, like people are just going to look at you like, you lost a few marbles. Inside the conference, it has value. And that's the kind of extrinsic that we want to be bringing in. That's really fun, Kit. Really good.
It's kind of intrinsic too, because if people suggest a ribbon to you, then it's like also that people are valuing you and recognizing your contribution to that organization.
Very nice. That's very good. Really good. All right. So from here, there's other areas that we're going to go more in depth on. And I'm going to go more in depth on all of this. So some of the areas would be like utilizing technology. We have traditionally used apps like Blue Rabbit and what's the other one? Tabby. And then we've used different platforms that like Engagely and Remo. So Remo, we could actually create the lodge where it's Quoth's Lodge. And so we created that lodge. And when you entered the conference, you entered the lodge. And so even though it was like this, you had to go to a table and you would knock on the table and you would just enter in then. So just really making that more immersive. So there's so many different kinds of technologies out there. Renee has done a whole thing on technology that is low cost or free. And sometimes it's all that we could do. And what do you call that, Renee?
Game bits and flavor bites.
Game bits and flavor bites. And it can really level up an experience and help your learners to get more engaged. So on Tuesday, we're doing 3 hours of a deeper dive into this topic, because actually at Sententia, we're going to put this into a book format. So we're going to be interviewing people like Kit who have done events where there's these fun components that you can bring into it. And it could be just a light form of gamification, but it still makes it more engaging. People like Piper Stone from the ATD chapter in Kansas City, who they've gamified their annual conference for probably 5 or 6 years, and do a phenomenal job with it. Sales training gamification. So we want to be interviewing those people and putting it all into book format. So everything from fully immersive with virtual or augmented reality, and even in that kind of technology, all the way down to cards or flavor bits. Did I get that right, Renee? No.
Game bits and flavor bites. you
Game
bet.
bits and flavor. Yeah. So that's Tuesday from 4 to 7 p.m. Central Time. That's this coming Tuesday. And I want to encourage you to join us in the gamification design community that is Game Garage if you have not already. So a lot of the people on the call are master craftsmen with us. And so they do get a membership. Other people like John Galto. John Galto needs to get a special reward because he's been with us through thick and thin from the very beginning, and he's an annual member. And as an annual member of Game Garage, you also get access to our Gamicon 48V. So by getting that annual membership, you're actually saving about 70% off of what would be the regular price because it's already discounted. You get free access to Gamicon 48V 2025. Plus, you get access to all the recordings from 2024. And anything that we do in Gamicon is included in your membership. So like our toolbox tutorials that are happening on the off Tuesdays. So first and third Friday, we do open Game Garage. Second and fourth Tuesday, we do a more in-depth 3-hour tutorial. You can attend those live or you can access the recordings. So you can go to Sententia Gamification and then click on the Game Garage button and you can find more information on that. The best value going is the annual Game Garage membership. And I would encourage you to lock into this community because so much of what I have learned, and as I keep bringing up names of people who are here, they are members of our community and we've all worked together to create everything that we've created. So I would encourage you to do that. All right. Another thing that you want to do is create an MVP and play test it. I think of Glenda when we did Glenda's design last year in NOLA. We play tested and play tested and play tested and play tested and iterated and tried it again and tried it again. Even the morning of, we're all in someone's Airbnb in New Orleans, play testing this design, just really making sure we've ironed out all the kinks and that everything's going to work smoothly as we had intended it to work. And if it's not going to work, what do we need to do differently then? Also, you'll want to be gathering feedback from your participants. We always learn and grow from our feedback. And our purpose at Sententia when we do Gamicons is to make it a meaningful and memorable event for every single participant. And everyone who's been on an event team with me knows if we fall short of that in any way, I'll talk about that for the next year of we have to remember that we didn't make the mark on this and what do we have to do differently to make sure we are getting that. So we want to make sure that it's resonating. And so the feedback will help us to grow. We really want to be open to that feedback because that's how we'll grow. We don't want to just be engaging during the event. We want to think about what can we do beforehand to make it memorable? How can we start getting them in? How can we start getting them onboarded? How can we help them to ramp up to hit the ground running once they've gotten to the event, whether that's live or virtual? How do we keep them engaged afterwards? How do we keep them engaged during? 48 hours for an event in February is long. We do a lot through video and short like blog articles on how to prepare yourself physically, mentally, with work so you can really get the most. How can you meet people? How do you communicate with people who don't speak the same language that you speak? And can you communicate with them? And can you make these international friends? And when I say that, it's like I could call on people all over the globe. And if I said, hey, I'm coming to town, can we meet for coffee? All over the globe, we've made those kind of connections because of 48V. So how do you do that? So we help, you want to make sure you're getting that engagement before, during, and after, and then always monitor and adapt. What worked last year is probably not going to work this next year. And that's not bad. It's just that things work until they don't work anymore. And even in a live event, we have to be monitoring and adapting. And I'll teach you on Tuesday our concept of what we call sightlines. It's a principle that we have here at Sententia, and I'll explain to you what sightlines are and how you set them and how you work with your team on it. Because even during the event, we're constantly monitoring and adapting as needed. So sightlines are an important component of that. And now it's your turn to launch. So I want you to really be thinking about, what can I do to bring gamification into something to make it more playful? People play games all the time. Even when we say we're not a gamer, we've still played a game of some sort. Like I remember when my children were young, I used to do 6 items, 60 seconds. And that was a game, right? Stopwatch game. So 60 seconds, they had to pick up 6 items that weren't where they belong and put them where they belong. And that was a lot of friendly competition going on. But what was I was helping them get the house cleaned up, right? But if I said clean up the house, I'm going to be met with a lot of resistance. The moment we turn it into a game, now people want to get engaged and play. So what can you do in what you're doing in real life to help to launch something that's more gamified? And we're always open to any questions that you have. And let me pause here. We have just a few minutes left in our time, but anyone who's been on an event team can answer a question. I can answer questions. So what questions do we have about gamifying an event? Let me stop.
Monica, I have a quick question. Artrell is asking who designed the graphics for your slideshow. So I know that's not about gamifying the event, but Artrell would like to know who designed
Oh,
them.
the one I used tonight?
Yeah.
Canva.
So you did that in Canva.
Yeah.
There you go.
I can
Artrell.
take 0
Wow.
credit, Canva. Although I'm going to use something different for Tuesday, because as much as I liked it when I first saw it, adapt, right? Like adapt, iterate, and adapt. I just felt like it ended up too childish, but I do love it. Do you like it or not like it, Artrell?
I like it.
All right. All right. So again, there's no right or wrong on that, but I'll look for something. I keep so here's a secret. I keep a swipe file, SWIPE. If something causes me to stop and read it or to look twice, I pull that over to a folder for me to analyze what caused me to stop. What did I see? And how could I use something like that? So this is a result of a swipe file. And these are 3D. Canva calls these 3D images. There's a great book called Steal Like an Artist. And the premise is that we don't really have original ideas, that we're all just, so I'm not saying we should steal someone's copyrighted idea, but there are ideas that are out there that we can see, how did they do that? And that's the whole premise behind Steal Like an Artist. It's a fantastic book. Artrell, do you know how to protect yourself? Are you going over water? Oh no. All right. What do we got here? Are Ukrainians? We've had, no, not Ukrainians. We've had Romanians. So that's not the same. We've had quite a few Romanian students. What is it? I would imagine that they're multilingual. They're probably more fluent than we are in multi-languages. No?
Lots of visuals and colors probably, Michaela, would help.
Yeah.
That. And I know, red is typically bad. So if you have the characters that are in a red and dark setting, they're typically the worst characters. If you have them in a light setting, they're the better characters or the good characters. So if you're doing something that's a more visual based, you could probably do it very visual video style based without a whole lot of worrying about text.
And also, I guess if you make it web based, well, I don't know what your design, but they can have the translation feature too. And I was just thinking, Artrell said he missed the safety message, but if you look at the plane, the card they put in the seat back, that's all pictures now.
Very visual.
Exactly what you're saying, Rebecca. They took it to all images. Yeah.
So is IKEA.
Yeah,
And
Oh.
HP printer, most
The
HP
scourge of humanity.
but the most important thing is making sure that you're being culturally informed, and so it's worthwhile to talk to a localization company, even if you just to make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to be culturally, especially if you're doing pictures, because for some cultures certain things mean different things, so and colors
Yeah.
mean different things, so
Yes. Colors mean different things. You're exactly right, Kit.
But it's
There was a member of our
the hacker,
ATD.
it's cybersecurity. So the hacker just needs to be a hoodie. They just need to be in a hoodie.
Oh, okay.
Moving away.
Rebecca. There was a woman in our ATD chapter in Austin, Kit, and that's what she studied was culture and colors. Like you don't wear these colors and it was fascinating. That's very good. That's very good advice.
Yeah, and if anybody, I work in localization, so I can point you to some companies that do translation if you need that.
Who do you work for, Kit?
I work for myself, but I do consulting in the space between TechCom and localization. So I work with global companies all over the world. So
Wow.
Love this idea.
Very cool. All right. Any other questions? Who has a question or a comment or an insight or an idea, a suggestion, an aha moment?
thank you so much, Monica. This is, I always enjoy these, and I'm sorry I don't get here more often.
I'm glad you were here. Thank you for that.
I will say that I appreciated the last breakout session, talking about the guided questions and doing the scavenger hunt, because we had another conversation about a lot of times you don't know how your role impacts someone else and then how their decisions impact you. So you kind of have to go down the chain. And it made me think of giving them a map and then having questions, but find out like which person goes to which position and how does what they do affect others down the line. Kind of a learning exercise for onboarding. So I'm going to use that.
Excellent, Sadie. And, that's one of those things that we think about, we become so familiar with it. It's just second nature. And we forget that somebody walking in has no experience with it at all. And it's not making any sense to them. So a map is such a great idea. I love it.
I love the supply chain graphic, like if you have like a content supply chain, for example, or a product supply chain, having them talking to people at each point, that can be a map and also an opportunity to interview. And I love that idea.
Very good.
And making sure you're solving the problem far enough upstream, right? Because if you're solving it at the end, then it's really expensive and takes a lot of time. If you're solving it upstream from where you are, I don't know how you would necessarily do that. It would depend on the company, but.
Well, and I guess also if you're looking at how you can pull data points, Kid, I'm thinking of a story I shared this morning in our level 2 certification. One of our journeymen, his name's Kyle Miller. He works for Vitalant, and they have an intense document management system, like 8,000 plus documents. He did a 9-minute escape room that was just to refresh people on how to use the document management system, not where to find document 7032. But one of the gentlemen who took that, he either tried 52 or 56 times to complete this 9-minute escape room and couldn't do it. And Kyle did the exact right thing. He went to say, where did we drop the ball? Right? Like, it's not like evidently you're not a good fit for us. It's like, we thought we had trained you. We thought we brought you on board, but using those data points where you can then see where are people not getting where we thought they would get to, what can we do differently to help them? And that's another reason why it's so important to have those data points that we're measuring. So we're not just looking at how great we did to give ourselves pats on the back, but what isn't working and how can we change that so it's better for the people that are there. All right. I think Renee, are you staying till top of the hour?
I am indeed.
Okay, so Renee, who is our program director, and she's always loves great ideas. Renee loves great ideas more so than anyone else I've met on the planet. She just will take that and want to know more about it. So if you've got any great ideas that you think would be a good Game Garage session, we would love to hear about it. And Renee can get you scheduled for that. And we do have our 48-hour conference coming up, and speaker applications are open right now. And also the throwdown, because we're doing a gamification. So if you've designed something that you've deployed, we have a throwdown competition. It's international, truly international this year. So you can apply for that throwdown also. Everything can be found at sententiagamification.com. and then Gamicon 48V. You'll see a link to the speaker application, which is due by the end of this month. And then the throwdown application, that throwdown application is due mid-December. But if you know somebody or you got something that you think would be great, please fill that out so we can be sure to include you. All right. I'm going to sign off. Renee will be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Awesome.
Oh, thanks, Renee. And don't forget, we got the toolbox tutorial on Tuesday. And I already realized right from the very beginning that I'm changing it from conference to any type of event. I need to work on that wording, because as soon as I said conference, I was like, wait a minute. There's a lot of things that we do on a regular basis that we could be bringing that gamification to. So thank you for that. All right. Thanks, Glenda. Appreciate you. You're always so kind. All right. We'll see you all. Have a great weekend. Hope to see you Tuesday at the Toolbox tutorial. Bye.